Hello and welcome friends. I am Nipunika Shahid and the topic has been written by Mr. Shahid Saeed, Executive Editor, Today's World.Asia. In today's episode, we shall be talking about making of a good write-up, how to write and edit a copy to suit the readers. Let's begin. Editing and rewriting are two of the hardest jobs facing a writer, particularly for our own copy. Most of us don't do it very well. Editing is central to the process of writing for the mass media. Good writers consciously train themselves to edit their own copy. Editing takes maturity, that is, a developed sense of what is good writing and how it sounds to the reader. It is often easier to edit someone else's copy than to edit our own. Editors should put themselves as much as possible in the place of the reader and ask, what will the reader expect from this piece of writing? Editing is a great career to pursue in journalism. It offers opportunity for advancement and growth. You can find editors in all areas of the workplace, print journalism such as magazines and newspapers, as well as publishing houses, businesses, etc. Editing is writing. In a news organization, editing plays a vital role. News reports written in a hurry by reporters have to be checked and improved by a team of editors. These copies are checked for grammar, syntax, facts, figures and sense. Editing is tailoring news items or a news story to the required shape and size using the right kind of expressions and symbols. A copy is edited to highlight the news sense in a story and to bring uniformity of language and style in an issue of a newspaper. Editors look out for certain news values in a copy like proximity, timeliness, prominence, consequence, and human interest while selecting a news item for publication. A news item is selected keeping in view its interest to a large number of readers and its impact on them. As you know that we have dealt extensively in Unit 4 and Unit 5 and also in Unit 6 about the concept of editing and principles of editing, so in this unit our main focus is on language editing. In the editing process, each newspaper has its own set of rules that are enforced. These rules are contained in a small book called the style book. The copy editor handling a news copy also has to write the headline for it using limited words within the allotted space. Similarly, layout editors have to allot space for photographs, maps, charts and graphs to go along with the news item. The language of photo captions, maps, graphs and charts are different from the language used in the text and headline and have to be mastered. A copy editor has to be well versed in editing symbols to correct the copy. Besides, he should be capable of rewriting a poorly written story if it is of interest to the readers. Editing and rewriting. Editing is tailoring news items or a news story to the required shape and size. Let us now take a quick recap on editing and its intricacies. On the news desk, all incoming news items are sorted by a senior journalist to achieve a balance between news originating within the organization and those pouring in from outside. In the process, unwanted copies get weeded out, only copies having news value are selected. These are checked for grammar, syntax, facts, figures and condensed for economy of space. A copy is edited to highlight the news sense in a story and to bring uniformity of language and style. If you refresh your learning of the previous courses, you may recall that news has a number of characteristic elements. 5 conventional determinants of news values are proximity. The nearer the origin of news, that is, the closer it is to home and the more is its impact. Timeliness. News grows old quickly. The more recent its occurrence, the more worthy it is. Prominence. Names make news and newspapers like to use as many local names as possible. News about public figures and celebrities make more interesting reading. Consequence. A reader's interest is aroused if an event or occurrence affects him. He is eager to know how it will affect him and his family. Say for instance, a news item on proposed hike in fuel prices. Human interest. Any interesting story about people and their peculiarities make for wider readership. A news story has to be newsworthy and interest a large number of readers. A story's worth is determined by its impact on the readers. All these factors have to be kept in mind while editing. In the next section, we will discuss about editing from the point of view of language. Words are the basic building blocks of journalism. One should respect the words and follow the way these are arranged and strung together. Misplaced words could twist the meaning of a sentence. Hence, one should pay attention to punctuation marks, grammar and syntax. All these are important in sentence construction. The comma plays an important role in punctuation. This little mark causes more trouble than the rest put together. Consider these examples. Ram says Raj is an idiot. Ram says Raj is an idiot. Observe how the placement of the comma has changed the meaning of the sentence. We should remember that commas define relationships within a sentence. Punctuation marks bring in clarity and make a piece of writing readable. However, too many punctuation marks may clutter up a story. There should be no comma after a verb unless it is immediately followed by a parenthesis. One of the areas of punctuation in which mistakes are often made is the dash and the hyphen. These serve two nearly opposite purposes but are often mixed up. A dash is used to create a pause for emphasis or to provide an abrupt change of thought or to introduce a phrase or clause in parenthesis. Hence, a dash separates and is spaced, whereas a hyphen joins the two, often unconnected ideas. It is not spaced and is half the size of a dash. Newspaper language has to be simple and precise. A copy editor or sub-editor editing a news story has to remove the rough edges from the copy and polish it to make it presentable as per the style of the newspaper. Wordiness, the curse of any age. Good writers make sure that every word they use contributes something to what they are writing. When you are editing, you should try to read through your copy at least once with the sole purpose of cutting down on the number of words you use. That's not to say you should cut out information. You should simply try to cut down on the number of words that you use. You might find phrases like the following. She donated $50,000 of her own money to the cause. The company makes labels for a wide variety of products found in retail stores and outlets. Revenue reductions for the state will amount to $1,000 million if the programs are eliminated. People in Asian countries have been eating jellyfish as a delicacy for hundreds of years. Careful editing could make these into, she gave $50,000 to the cause. The company makes labels for retail products. The state could lose $1,000 million if the programs are shut down. Asians have long considered jellyfish a delicacy. Here we are not talking about finding redundancies and repetitions. We are examining the way that we express our information and ideas. In some instances, we were able to substitute shorter words for longer ones. Gave for donated, for instance. Sometimes we can find the bureaucratic phrases revenue reductions that often cloud modern writing. Passive voice verbs are always good targets for this kind of editing. Every time you run across a passive voice, see if you can turn it around and make it active, and see if that doesn't sound better. Sometimes it won't, often it will. Newspapers and news organizations follow their own style. It is used to maintain consistency and credibility of a newspaper. If P in the word Parliament is written in capital letters at some places and in small letters at other places, it may affect the reader subconsciously. For example, Doom-duma, Doom-duma. Analyze, analyze. Only one of the above should be followed consistently. A newspaper reader in the morning is in a great hurry. A news story should be in a familiar language so that it runs smoothly through the average reader's mind. Simple, direct sentences are more attractive. Long sentences with clauses, exclamations, interjections, quotations, allusions, metaphors, etc. should be avoided. Unfamiliar words and jargon, expressions used in a particular discipline like law, medicine, etc. should be avoided as far as possible. Words not commonly used should be explained in simple language. Some Latin and Greek expressions used in law, medicine, biology, etc. have become part of the English vocabulary through usage. If these are readily understood, they may be used without explanation, but if they have a popular English equivalent, that should be preferred. Obscene and vulgar language should be totally avoided. They should be cut out even from direct quotations. Slang and colloquialism should at best be avoided. Active voice is preferred to passive voice in writing as passive voices have a deadening effect. For example, the sentence, "The directors will meet next week" is preferable to "A meeting will be held by directors next week." However, in certain circumstances, the passive voice is useful where the deed is more important than the doer. A general strike has been called for tomorrow by XYZ to protest against ABC is better than the XYZ has called a general strike for tomorrow in protest against ABC. All names in the copy should be properly identified as far as possible. Where the subject of a copy has multiple identification he currently holds should be mentioned in the first instance, the others can be suitably mentioned in later parts of the copy. If the subject does not hold any office currently, he or she has to be identified by the former office. Adjectives and epithets should be used in proper context and sparingly. No adjective or any other expression that smacks of bias involves a value judgment should be used. For example, while reporting a police firing, one can say, "The police had to open fire," or "The police was forced to open fire." The correct way to give a factual narration is, "The police opened fire." However, if a minister or an official states that the police had to open fire, it may be reported as such. Quotations should be used sparingly to highlight important aspects of a story. Sometimes, a couple of words within quotation marks are more effective than a whole sentence. In reporting statements or speeches, the safest verb is said. There is no harm if it appears repeatedly in a copy. Verbs that can be substituted for said are stated, declared, remarked, observed, averred, affirmed, pointed out, told, informed, admitted, alleged, denied, rejected, disclosed, revealed. Principles of rewriting. Recognize the basic principles of rewriting a story in terms of improving copy, updating the story. transforming informal reports, localizing, combining stories and shifting emphasis. Writing takes practice. Your first draft will never be as good as your second draft, and the second will never be as good as the third. Remember, there is no such thing as good writing, only good rewriting. Or, as Roscoe Bourne, former Wall Street Journal editor, said, what you have written is only preparation for what you are going to write. Here are some ways to improve your first draft. Read your story aloud. Reading aloud is a great way to test for clarity and grace. Are your sentences too long? Is a paragraph confusing? Is your work conversational or stilted? An essential element for good writing is a good ear. One must listen to one's own prose. Check to make sure your sentences are not too long. Sentence length should vary, but the average should be below 25 words. Reader comprehension decreases as sentence length increases. Paula LaRocque of the Dallas Morning News said, "The period is one of the clear writer's best friends." And Robert Gunning wrote, "I know of no author addressing a general audience today who averages much more than 20 words per sentence and still succeeds in getting published." Check your writing for clutter. Is your work full of twisted phrases, jargon, redundancies, long words where short ones will do, unnecessary qualifiers and modifiers? The disease of American writing is clutter, said William Zinsser. Strip every sentence to its cleanest components. The gardener knows that he must thin his plants after the first seedlings appear. Otherwise, his entire crop will suffer. The same holds true for writing. Make sure that you have used the subject-verb-object construction in most of your sentences. Avoid backing into sentences with long dependent clauses, especially introductory ones. Roy Peter Clark calls this throat clearing. Get to it. The principles of rewriting are the same as those for good news writing. If a story does not conform to acceptable news writing standards, it should be rewritten and made to do so. In other words, you take what someone else has written poorly and convert it into usable news copy. When you are assigned to a command publication, such as a ship or station newspaper, you will find that a certain amount of your material comes from contributors who do not write in journalistic style. Other material comes to you as handouts and from outside sources such as clip sheets, naval messages, directives and official correspondence. If you want your publication to contain readable and consistently good material, or if you have a local angle and want it to be accepted by commercial news media in your area, it is often necessary to rewrite it. To transform informal reports into properly written news stories, to localize general information, to combine two or more stories, to change story emphasis. Copy improving. Often a person's first attempt at writing a story produces dismal results. Some members of a public affairs office staff may not be thoroughly skilled in the writing craft. Also, material for intended release is often received from other staff offices or departments. These articles frequently need the professional touch. A rewrite reporter organizes a poorly written, improperly arranged item into a sequential, logical finished product. A rewrite reporter may have to turn a straight news story into a feature. In this event, the rewriter often needs to acquire additional information and can expect to spend some time on the telephone or in a face-to-face. There are times too when the rewrite reporter may be proficient in both types of writing before assuming to write an assignment. One of the most frequent faults of the badly written copy is the writer's failure to give ample play in the lead to the dominant news element of the story. The rewriter must dig through the story, find the proper lead, put it at the beginning where it belongs, and finally organize the story in coherent form. Story updating. Often the rewriter must update a story that has already been printed. So naturally, this person needs a fresh angle to perform this feat. For example, assume that a military aircraft crashes with 3 people aboard. 2 crewmen are killed and the third is missing. A story based on these facts would be released as soon as possible. Then suppose the third man is still alive, that he had managed to parachute from the falling airplane. The following are 6 basic reasons for rewriting copy. To improve poor copy, the survivor crewman had made his way back to a highway, caught a ride, telephoned the base and reported his experience. The news of a survivor is the fresh angle needed by the rewriter to update the story of the crash. Positions in print editing. There are many different levels of editing positions. Here's a list to get you familiar with the types of jobs out there in publishing, journalism and editing. Junior editors. These are often editors who are starting out their careers in journalism or editing. They report to more senior level editors. The smaller the publication, the more responsibilities the junior editors will likely take. Fact-checking, editing and rewriting are also included responsibilities. Senior editors. These editors can also be known as senior editorial managers or senior executive editors. Junior editors often report to them and they are responsible for developing a product to its final release. Editor-in-Chief. Magazine and newspaper editors include a top-level editor, may be called an editor-in-chief. This person is in charge of all aspects including layout, page design, placement of advertisements and article inclusions. Copy editors and desktop publishing. Copy editing consists of making formatting changes and improvements to a manuscript. You find copy editors or sub-editors in magazines, newspapers, book publishing and journals. A copy editor's job is not simply proofreading. It also includes keeping an eye out for libel, defamatory untruths that could lead to lawsuits, and errors of facts. They also create captions and headlines to appeal to audiences. At newspapers and wire service companies, for example, articles will usually need to have correct spelling and grammar. Layout style, page design, and the selection of news stories to be included are also considered. These jobs are also similar to positions known as layout editor, design editor, news designer, production editor, and editor-in-chief. Since a lot of editing is now done on the computer, editors will often use technology to organize and edit their work. This is known as desktop publishing. Editing tasks consist of the 5 C's: clear, correct, concise, comprehensible, consistent. With this, we conclude this session of advanced exercise in editing, rewriting. That's all for today. Thanks and goodbye.